welcome back to another Saturday night, and show. There we go. I've got 8 people on. So welcome back to DT Koi, everyone, and another Saturday night. I hope you've all had a good week so far. Especially the weather up here, it's been great. I've been able to feed my fish, get a few bits done outside for a bit, and I was gonna mow the grass in afternoon, and then it started raining. But yeah, I'll just well, I'll explain it now anyway. I know there's only 7 watching, but I'll explain it before we carry on with the show. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out between me and Kyle doing the Saturday Night Lives. So we still mates, but as the regular Saturday nights, we've gone our separate ways, but we're still good friends and still on good talking terms. So I just thought I'd get that out there and get it done so everyone knows what's going on, or if not, I will mention it later. And now, with that, I shall run the intro. Well, I hope that made you laugh, guys. And yeah, it made me laugh. And I know I've done all that on the phone, but it will improve over time. But yeah, I've got my guest for this week, and yeah, going to get straight onto the topic of the week. But yeah, I'll bring him on so he can introduce himself. Damn, I missed it where you was going to have a drink then, didn't I? Damn.
You did. A little bit slow there.
Well,
how you doing, guys? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Keeping busy.
Yeah, so what have you been up to this week? All good?
Not a lot, to be honest. I finished digging the pond last weekend. So that's all dug now, ready to be bottom drained and concreted. I've just not had a chance. I've been so hectic with other things this week. I've not had a chance to get down to JKI and buy me bottom drain. So I've still got that to go and get yet.
Well, that's actually a great onto it. So obviously we've had a bit of a previous chat before we go on the live. Then this week's topic to start off with is the DIY pond builds and stuff like that, and what we can make ponds out of and stuff like that. And if you guys want to put a comment in and help us along, then you can do. But yeah, so what was I going to say here? Because I've actually got my notes this week as well.
Good to be prepared.
Sort of pond builds could you make your ponds out of? I think there's sleepers, 7 blocks. What else?
Yeah, your concrete blocks, and you've got bricks. You've got the hollow blocks that you can rebar and fill with concrete. Vince has even said he's done a sandbag pond in the past.
Yeah, because he did his front pond, didn't he? Out of all that sort of them
broken slabs.
Yeah.
Broken slabs, and then in the gap filled with the soil, I suppose, he dug out of the pond.
And then the one that I'm really interested in, because it'll be a good option for a lot of koi people at the minute, is what Daz's koi farm, which is part of the GKP, is what he's doing with all them gravel boards. That looks quite good and probably a lot of a cheaper option.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. As long as it holds, which it looks like it's holding well so far. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't, to be honest. But yeah, it's a cracking idea and a very cheap, quick way of getting a pond up.
Well, it might be an idea. I might nick a bit of next door's fencing because they're me and they're not listening. Nick a bit of theirs and then just extend that and have a little QT tank.
Yeah, there you go.
And then, like I say, that one of the things I wish I'd put in, which you've got, is a viewing windows. That is one thing I would recommend personally. Anybody to actually put a pond window in the pond, because you can see your fish from anywhere like the way you've got your set up, if it's raining and you don't want to be outside or it's cold, you can see them all from the inside, can't you?
Absolutely. It's not just that. The reason why I love it is, yes, like most people, I still love looking down on my koi, and it's the reason why where I stand on the inside of my pergola, I'm a lot higher up there because I'm stood on a decking, so I can still look down on my fish quite happily. Plus, I can see them all out the bedroom window. But it's just having that window makes it so much easier. Like as a for instance, I don't know if I got any footage of it, but a couple of months back, I might have done, but one of my koi anyway had some raised scales, but it was really low down on the side of its stomach. And obviously, if I was looking from above only, I wouldn't have seen them because they were almost tucked under the stomach. Probably just from where they've been lying on the bottom for most of this cold weather that we've had this winter. But having that window gets you that ability to be able to see underneath the koi without having to net them all out to find out why they're sulking and whatnot. So that's another great perspective of having a window. I know it's not for everybody, but if you're building a raised pond, even just a tiny window to have that extra, hidden around the back, as a for instance, if you really don't want a window, but it's just to have that ability to be able to see under the koi without having to net them all out is a great help, in my opinion, anyway.
Well, then, like Andy's koi, I'm possibly about to launch my small channel with a small wooden frame pond build. Might follow that with my last build, which was bigger. It's one of them, Andy. That's one thing I wish I did do, is put a window in my sleeper pond. But when I've got two young kids playing football and I've got some pebbles in the garden, I thought, are they going to smash it? Am I going to lose the water? Is it this? Is it going to be that? And I fought against it. But go and do your channel, because I'm sure people subscribe along. I certainly will. And
I'm already subscribed, Andy.
I might be. I don't know. It's just there's that many channels that I do now subscribe to. Sometimes I can't see it quick enough with me having a family and then only having a bit of spare time. It's hard to find what videos are what, because I don't always get notifications for it, because you know what YouTube's like. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And another thing is, like, people, something else maybe to consider when you're building your pond. Don't worry, it's just because I'm looking at my notes. Is that maybe where you put your water supply, or whether you trickle in or whether you want to trickle out. Because mine's a right pain in the bum. I have to go all the way from the bathroom, through the bathroom, through the kitchen, through the front room, out of the window, then all the way down to the bottom end of the garden to fill my pond up.
See, I thought mine was bad. My tap's right in this corner of the pergola, so I have to have a hose pipe going out of the pergola around the pond. I even did a video on it, or a bit of it, ages ago. I put an extra hose pipe under my decking, hidden around the back of my pond, and put like a stop tap on it, so I could just turn it on and turn it off from that end. And about a month after I'd done it, either mice or rats had chewed through the bloody hose pipe. So I've now got to rip all my decking back up to get to the bloody hose pipe to either replace it or just take it out. And I think I'm just going to take it out, because obviously if I replace it, it'd probably just happen a bloody again. So
well, it's one of them. It's like, we're going to talk about this anyway, and I just watched Andy Koi Pond Lifestyles video, and he just mentioned the same thing. So it's one of them. If you are building a pond, try and think of your water source. But I won't going to pay nearly 200 quid for a plumber to come out to then do all the pipe work just for an outside tap, because all our water sources are the other side of the house, but the garden's the other side, so they cost too much money.
I was quite lucky. I redid my kitchen about 5-6 years ago, and I literally took all the plasterboards off and everything, all the floor up. So I basically cut out a channel in the floor of my kitchen, because mine's the same. My water's all down that end and my pond's that way. But I cut out a channel in my kitchen floor while I was doing it so I could put an outdoor tap out there, ready for when I did my real rebuilds and stuff. So I did plan ahead on that. I just wish I put the tap on the other side of the house and not this side. But each
it's one of them. You try and think as much as you can about your pond build, and then or your gardens, or you're redesigning. And there's always one thing you forget, and then you realise about 4 months later, damn, I wish I put that over there or that there. It's just always hit and miss, isn't it?
Oh yes.
Then something I would recommend is like ball, like with ball valves and stuff like that. If you are thinking of a pond build, then because not everyone's got a big ass budget to spend all in one go. If you think about your pond and you're going to have X amount of ball valves, waste valves, you just buy it in little bits and little pieces, and then just store it wherever you can store it. And then when you've got enough bits, and then just buy the next bit you need, and then the next bit, and then the next bit. So you're not spending a whole load of money in one go. With a friend of mine that says, if you're wanting to go bigger or other bits, try and buy it when it's a little bit in the winter, when certain koi places need the extra little bit of money, and you might get a bit more discount by going in the winter and buying bits and pieces, which, some YouTubers, I think, or there were one, and they were on my show, that My Koi Journey, I've got his channel right, I got it wrong, where he had all them waste valves on his multi-bait all crack. And that's the other thing to come along is installation on your pond. So you're preparing yourself for winter, whether it's on the inside or whether it's the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got way too many ball valves on my pond, but I'd rather have too many than not enough. But like as you say, they're just so expensive, and it's because of the cost of things why my pond took as long as it did. Because there was a few things that I hadn't budgeted for, like for instance the liner. When I got my first quote, I got my liner from Kirky at Paul Kirk's, from Kirky's Koi, and when I gave him the initial measurements when I was planning the pond, because I didn't change the size and depth and whatnot, so that was all spot on, and he quoted me I think 296. But then obviously whilst digging, I come across that water pipe, which changed the shape of the bottom of the pond, and that changed the price from 296 to just short of 800 quid.
Ouch.
Yeah, 798, I think, something like that. And again, that's a big wad of money that I hadn't budgeted for at the time. Plus, halfway through the build, I decided I'm not going with a sieve, I'm going to get a drum. And that just ate pretty much the whole budget. So I was then working on being self-employed, working on, right, I'll earn a bit and then I'll buy a bit more. I'll earn a bit and I'll buy a bit more.
And then because ANC have asked for the link for the GoFundMe, so I know we're talking about that, but just to do a bit of sidetracking, I'll just show you the screen. That one. Yeah, to that. Select that one. It's not gonna let me, is it now?
Typical.
Yeah, right. I think that's the right one. So yeah, there we go. That is the subtotal at the moment is £669. Sorry, £669. I might have said it wrong. I'm overwhelmed with the amount that we've raised so far, because Milwaukee is next Sunday, which I'm looking forward to, but at the same time, I don't think my legs are, but and every pound helps, and it's to the brain tumour research, which is, like I say, a brain tumour research. They don't get a lot of funding. I think, if I remember rightly, it's £2,495 each day for them to actually do research, and don't get a lot of money. I think out of all the cancer research and that, they get about 1%. So every little does help, and I'm very overwhelmed with all the the donations. And if anybody would like to donate, then there is a link. I know not everybody can, because obviously the way everything is at the minute, but even if it's £1, every donation helps. And when I do get to the point where I'm starting to maybe hit a brick wall, I shouldn't, but if I do, then all these funds are going to help push me going on further and further until I finally reach a mum's grave. And yeah, really, I should have done it tomorrow for Mother's Day, but it's one of those things. I thought I'll do it end of month, the last Sunday of the month. And yeah, I know that's a bit of a divulge from it, but yeah, it's just that I got asked it and I thought, well, it's there before they come in to go, sure, I'll mention it. But yeah, we'll get back to what we wore.
Well, we know you're going to smash it, Dave.
Well, yeah, I hope so. It's just I've been practicing with my walks and that I've done 5 miles here, 6 miles there, 4 miles here. So I'm steadily progressing. I might even try and do a 10-mile walk tomorrow, weather depending. But there's no chance.
It's meant to be quite nice tomorrow. So,
well, we'll see.
Not that our weathermen can predict much these days, but you know.
No, you never know that. Oh, we're going to get snow in 3 months, and 3 months comes, and then we get no snow. So you never know what you're like.
We get a heat wave instead.
Yeah, and then another one is what's it now? List of valves, which I think helps you top up your water, like you've got on your toilets, like that. You know, for if you trickle in, trickle out, to turn it off until that lowers, and then back up again. Because that's what my local Cory dealer's got on all his Cory. On every single one of his tanks, he's got that. So when it gets to a certain height, then it'll knock off again.
Yeah. You can also top up. You can buy them in most Cory dealers, but you can also make your own, as you say, out of a toilet system.
Yeah.
So it's, you know.
And then another one that if you've got out, you can put in the comments. Is there any? Well, I'll put it out to everybody. Has anybody got anything? You know, if you've got power cuts, does anybody do anything like solar? You know, just to run like a little air pump, just to keep things going, or does nobody have anything? If there's a power cut, do you just wait till the power comes back on? Have you got any suggestions for that, Jamie? If you've got out?
Yeah, I've got 2 things that I use. Well, 3 actually. I've got a couple of little tiny solar-powered air pumps. So obviously they'd be no good at night because they don't save up a battery. But during the day, I can chuck them in if I ever get power cut. I have got, though, a battery-powered air pump, and that lasts for about 8 hours. So I generally can use that overnight. And then I've also got a rather large battery bank that looks like a car battery, about that sort of size. Where's my hands there? About that sort of size. I can't remember how many mAh and whatnot it does, but it's got 2 plug sockets on it. And you can plug anything in there up to 300 watt, if memory serves me correctly, which can power my pump and it can power my drum. So I can actually keep the pond running with that. And I've never managed to drain the whole battery. I always see it get down to like that 50%, and then I just plug it back in and charge it back up. So it would probably last, if I left it just running purely on the pond, it'd probably only last about 48 hours. But unless a major incident happened, that should cover me for anything I need to, you know.
Generally, a power cut can last normally around 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
But say if you can get something over 8 hours, then it's a bonus. If you know, it's something that I'm going to start looking into. Like Max Country Cory put there, the generator, if there's power cuts, is what we have. Well, as it happens, I might go generator route. It's only because I work for a company that does generators, so it's one of them. I might just get some solar, but it all just depends. But it's something probably to think about. Because we might get a few power cuts like round here. I think last year in summer we had about 4 or 5 power cuts, and they were just you don't get no one anyway. But sometimes they were off for 10 minutes. Sometimes it was 3 hours. Sometimes it was 6 hours. It's just having that little bit of backup if need be.
Do you follow the Pond Guru, DT?
No, because like I said, when I shut my original channel down, I lost all the subs, and half of them I can't even remember. If anybody is watching,
the only reason I say it, because obviously you're talking sort of solar and backups. He recently done a couple of months back a review on a gadget similar to mine. It's like a giant battery bank, a bit bigger than mine, but he's actually, I can't remember. I think it was an American brand, but he's actually came with quite a large fold-out solar panel as well.
Yeah,
so you can actually. Go on.
Is that the similar one to what James O'Coy Whisperer got?
Yeah, that kind of thing, yeah. But you can actually have it on and powering your pond whilst the solar is continually charging the battery. So it's like a double barrel, which is quite good. I had a look at them, but that American one, being in America, is quite expensive to buy and then ship over. But there are obviously similar things to that you can buy in the UK. I was looking at one myself, but again, it's just cost, isn't it? Because they're all about 600 quid, them things.
And then a few other things is depths of your pond, which is a good talking point. What are people's depths of the ponds? And see if we get the same answer here. What would you recommend if somebody was digging the pond, like the main pond? What would you recommend as a decent depth?
Well, it's each to their own on that. I mean, me personally, I like a pond to be at least 4 foot, at least, but no bigger than 6 foot. But again, that's only my personal opinion. So if someone was asking me my advice, I would just say between 4 and 6 foot. But you've got, I mean, you look at, I can't remember whose it was now, but I asked a question on a YouTuber's channel not long ago, how deep is your pond? I think it was Daz from Daz's Koi Farm. His main pond was only about 2.5 to 3 foot deep in the deepest part. And that's next to nothing. And these koi are doing, thriving in there. So it doesn't need to be that deep, but that's just how I like it. So
apparently, it sounds like I'm over in the pond again, so I'm gonna have to sort this out again. I don't know why it is, but hey ho. Right, give me a minute. Right. That should have sorted that out. Scrag, just let me know. Has that sorted it out? Get back to me, Scrag, quick. Just type yes or no. Scrag.
It sounds a lot clearer from my end.
Right. Well, I'll give that as a thumbs up and I'll carry on anyway. See, it's always the thing with my live shows. It were working earlier and then it stopped because I use that microphone for all my filming and stuff, and it normally works on live shows as well, but clearly not anymore. So I might have to invest in something else. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway, yeah, me, I would say about 4 to 4.5 because mine's at 4.5, and then you've got A and C, say 3.5 foot deep in the end and 2.5 in the shallow end. I'll say everyone's got their own differences and what works for them. Well, all you have to do is look at the size of their koi, and their water is just magnificent, isn't it? So, and then what else have we got? Yeah, because you're on gravity fed system, aren't you? Where your bottom drain, and I'm on a pump fed system. So I'll go with you first. The benefits, and then the negatives of a gravity fed, if there is any.
Yeah, there's always positives and negatives with everything. But the biggest positive I like about the gravity system, unless I got a leak in the bottom drain run itself underground, which being that deep underground is very, very unlikely it's going to happen. So it can happen, but it's very unlikely. But for instance, if any of my pipes burst or disconnected, like when some people have lost a rubber boot in the past or whatever, with my pond, it can only drain down to the lowest water entry or exit point, apart from the bottom drain, which would still give me nearly 4 foot of water in the pond. If a pipe was to burst or something was to fail, because my lowest inlet is on the bottom sleeper of the pond, but my pond from there is still almost 4 foot down, because it's almost 6 foot. My pond comes up to there on me, and I'm 6'2", so it's pretty much 6 foot deep. So that's one massive advantage of being gravity fed. As I say, the only way it could fully drain is if the bottom drain itself failed and started leaking from that area. Another great advantage of it is you obviously get to have the bottom drain, which, as you've seen by my videos, occasionally there's the odd bit of fresh waste sitting there, but within 20 minutes, half an hour, the bottom of the pond is crystal clear again. So I've still got my pond vac in my shed. Not that I can get in that shed at the minute, but I've still got it because I used to use it all the time in my old pond because I was pump fed. But I haven't had to even get it out yet this year. Well, I haven't got it out since I finished building this pond. I haven't used it since. So I'll probably end up selling it eventually because my new pond that I'm building now is going to be gravity fed as well. So that's a good bonus of being gravity fed.
And what, any negatives? I'm just going through a few of these comments. Well,
there probably are. It's a lot more costly for a start. That is a big negative. To go gravity fed, obviously you need different and better filtration. Because on my previous pond, I literally just had a big pump in the pond and a 30,000 litre pressure filter, plus a vacuum shower. But to set that up, once the framework and the pond had water in it, you've only got to drop the pump in and you're good to go. Whereas obviously a gravity fed, it's this pond. I've built quite a few ponds over the years, but this one in my garden now was the first gravity fed system I've ever done, and it's a big eye opener if you've never done one before. Because before that I was always just on flexi hose, attach your pump and away you go.
that's me.
dead simple, dead cheap, and dead quick and easy. Whereas all these ball valves and everything like that, plus most pump fed systems, the kind of filter you'd use would normally have a built-in UV as well. So again, it's just remembering that the extra things that you need to buy and have whilst on a gravity fed system, such as your ball valves, and because you don't even really need ball valves on a pump fed system, because once you turn the pump off, that's it. Everything's off.
Well, with mine, mine's obviously pump fed, but I've got their Blagden IQs that 6,000 to 12, or it might be 9,000 to 12, one or other. That has got a built-in float switch. It's not sat right at the bottom, sat up about, I don't know, about that far, so maybe a foot off at the bottom. Here we go again. Yeah, and again.
I'm getting deja vu.
Oh, see what I mean? It's the live shows at DTs, and it never normally goes to plan. But yeah, I'll carry on where I was. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, mine's pump fed, but with the Blagden, I can't stop laughing. I hope you guys found that funny. I didn't even see it coming this time. I'll get to the question in a minute, Scrag, when I find stuff. With the IQ bombs, the actually got a built-in float switch, so when it drops below that, then it will switch off. But then it goes out the pond through an external UV, which is the Cockney Coil 55 watt. Then it comes out of the UV into a ball valve, which then goes into the Nexus, and obviously goes all around the Nexus, and then returns through a 4-inch return.
Yeah.
So I have the one ball valve on there, but that's only for when I'm cleaning. So obviously all the water don't go back through pipes.
Yeah.
And then obviously 2 ball valves then for the Nexus, obviously when you're cleaning. But the negatives of that is, I suppose, it's only sucking from wherever the pond pump actually is, not in the centre. Because the way I set mine up, I thought, I'll have 2 shelves, and I'll have it sloping in the middle. I'll put the pump in the middle. I'll have a few plants on side. Have I ever put plants in my pond? No. So why put shelves on? And then I thought, right, I've got to keep the shelves in now. So I use that. If I have to get in the pond, I can get in via the shelf.
Yeah.
But the shelf's only like a foot shallower than everywhere else. So, but yeah, just the question, lads, and the group. Quarantine fish, obviously a separate tank. What else do you do when quarantining fish, and how long do you do it for? That'd be it, because you've got a few extra tanks, haven't you?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't use them for quarantine. I should do, but I've always got fry in my other tank, so I'd either be killing all the fry or killing the fish in the main pond. So even for all. But yeah, with the quarantine, like Vince always says, and like the koi dealers do, the best way you can do it is just keep absolutely everything separate. So get a separate net for your quarantine tank. If you want to be bowling them up, get 2 bowls, one for your pond and one for your quarantine tank. And just keep absolutely everything separate. If you need a tool for that pond and that pond, buy 2 tools, whatever it may be. If you need to put it in the water, just if you're going to be using the same bowls and the same nets between ponds, there's literally no point having the quarantine, because anything that your new fish has come in on, you're going to be passing straight to your existing pond via the net, via the sock, via the bowl, or whatever anyway. So yeah, if you're having a quarantine pond, you want to try and have a separate net for that and a separate bowl for that. If you need a bowl, you might not need a bowl for that pond, but if you are going to want to bowl fish up from the quarantine pond and you're using it as a quarantine pond, just keep everything separate.
And then how long?
The
next part of the question is how long for?
That, again, that's down to personal choice. It depends where you buy the fish from. If you're getting it from a very reputable dealer and you know their process, like most of my fish will generally come from JKI, and I've been in their quarantine rooms. I know how they do it. I mean, they don't just separate dealers. They actually separate what they've got. That many quarantine ponds at JKI, they literally separate every bag. That bag of fish goes in that pond, that bag of fish goes in that pond. That way, if there is a problem, not only do they know exactly what breeder it's come from, they know which set of fish from that breeder. Like if you bought Tosai and Nisai from the same breeder, if the Tosai have got a problem, that may not necessarily mean the Nisai have got a problem. So he literally keeps everything separate. So if I was buying a fish from him and had a quarantine, I'd probably just quarantine it for an extra week, maybe do a few scrapes on it, and if everything's still all clear, put it in. But then if I went to a brand new dealer, that I've never been to, then the average, I suppose, is about 3 weeks. And if you've got the facility to do a heat ramp, do it. But again, it's each to their own, and knowing where you buy the koi from. If you know their facilities and know how they look after the koi, then theoretically you've got no need to.
And then Mad Dog says 6 weeks. Mark Country Koi says I quarantine for 6 weeks and heat everything. Is documented, separate nets, scrape twice a week. Like you were just saying, then have 2 different like pan nets, koi socks. If you wanted another bowl, and basically just treat it as if it was your main pond, but it's a different pond. So buy everything separate for that one pond.
Absolutely. If you keep it fully separate, then you know if there is any problems, whether it be parasite or bacterial or anything else that a fish could bring along with it, you can't pass it. And if you find something that needs treating, it's not just a case of then treating that fish and the pond. You then would need to treat all your bowls, nets, and anything else you've used whilst handling the fish as well. But if you've dumped your net into that pond and then just quickly, just net that fish up in the main pond as well and use the same net, well, then not only now you're treating that pond, you're now treating your main pond as well. So keep it all separate, and you only ever need to treat the smaller quarantine pond.
And another question, should you use a treatment even if there's no signs of anything wrong with your fish? Obviously, you don't know what you're treating for if you can't see anything. Well, to be honest, Greg, my personal opinion with that one is I personally wouldn't treat my pond for anything if I didn't know, what the parasite was. I would always test the water first. Then if your parameters are right, then scrape so you know what you're treating for. Because you could say, it looks like flukes, I'll treat flukes, but it might end up being Costia or Trichodina or Chilodenella. Until you've done that scrape to find out what it is, I wouldn't personally treat a pond if I don't know what I'm treating for. And I don't know if you'd back me up on that, Jamie, or you've got a different answer to me.
No, I agree with 99.9% of it, but I'm not going to lie, because I'm not a person that does that. But one thing that I do is if, like I mentioned earlier, I had a fish that had some raised scales. I did do my water tests, I did do my scrapes, and everything come back clear. But he had raised scales, and obviously I don't know what caused it, because I couldn't find anything on the scrapes or the water tests. But I did chuck in some Virkon. So theoretically, I don't know what I'm treating, but I was just making sure that there wasn't any bad bacteria kicking about in the pond. So theoretically, I didn't know what I was treating, but I was being cautious on that line. So after everything that's happened in my ponds over the last couple of years, I tread on the side of caution. But yeah, when it comes to parasites, if my fish all started flicking and flashing, I wouldn't just chuck a product in like Fluke Solve or Lernex or Costia treatments, FMG, that kind of thing. I would always want to find out, because it's too bloody expensive for a start. I mean, to treat my pond is about 3/4 of a Lernex bottle, and just one dose. You need to do at least two, And if I was treating that and chucked in a load of Lernex to find out, it was Costia all along, well, then I've just wasted like 50, 60 quid, didn't I?
Yeah. So, it's one of them, and like it says, top advice, lads. And Mark, sorry, obvious question, but I'm relatively new. It's all right, Greg. That's part of what my show is about, trying to give something back to the community. Like they've asked me to come, many people asked me to come back. So I've come back, and that's what my show's about. If I can, and that's the point of my videos, if I can help one person that's watched my videos and help them in some sort of way, then it's job achieved. If I don't, then at least my family, because I do this, so my kids have got something to watch, or they might feel embarrassed, but at the same time, it's one of them. I just enjoy doing what I do, and if it helps somebody along the way, then it does.
Absolutely. There's no such thing as a stupid question. No. I mean, you look at people's first day in McDonald's. It's a nice, easy job, flipping burgers or whatever, but if you're new to it, you're still going to ask questions. So there is no such thing as a silly question. It's just...
And then that was it. We were still halfway through the pump fed systems, but yeah, on that, the downside is if you've got, like I do, I have to use my pond vac. With me now putting it for the winter, I've upped it a little bit further away from the middle. So when you do get that extra little bit of poo or a bit of leaf debris or whatever, then it settles there, and your pump's not taking it out as much as it would have done before. So that's the downside. And obviously, then having a pond vac to then do it all, it's that little bit extra work to do it. So, but at the time, I just thought, right, like you said, just buy a pump, put it in, do all the flexi pipe or PVC pipe, pressure pipe, whatever, to get my system running. But like you say, I might go retro this year. It just all depends on money, and I suppose energy bills, food bills. It all just depends what I've got left to do what I can do. But
retro's definitely worth it. The only thing that you need to think about when you're going retro, because you mentioned leaves and things, obviously a retro drain will literally suck up everything. Whereas if you've just got a pump in your pond, the cage stops the big debris obviously getting into the propellers and the pump. So the pump itself normally, unless you get major blanket weed, can't block up. Whereas if you've got a retro in your pond, that can suck up your large leaves, big clumps of blanket weed, which can obviously clog and block your pump up. So although it does keep your bottom clean, it does mean that you need to get your pump out occasionally and check it and maintain it and make sure the propellers are not all clogged up. But that's the only disadvantage I can see to a retro drain, the fact that it can block up your pump. But other than that,
and then
keep your pump clean.
And then, like I said, the different types of liners and stuff like that. So if people have joined, that wasn't at the start. The topic we're on at the minute is DIY pond builds and what you can build your pond out of, whether you're pump fed, whether you want windows and just stuff like that. So yeah, that's what the sort of topic is about tonight. So yeah, the different types of liner. Ones I've had a quick look at is you've got the woven liner, which I have, which people said CT1 or OB1, and other ones that they don't really stick to it. When I had my liner, and I made like a Japanese waterfall style thing. You can make it whatever you want to call it. I used the HA6 stuff, and I didn't have no leaks and no problems with it. but that can be a problem with the woven liners, that certain silicons or maybe no silicons will stick to it. Then you've got the rubber liner, a box welded liner, or if you know that you're not going to move or anything like that, then you've got fiberglass, which obviously if I could afford it, then I would be fiberglass, but it's not the cheapest to do. But it's something you could do yourself if you wish to do it.
If you can do it yourself, it's not too bad, because I had a look at some fiberglass kits to do mine, and a kit to do mine would be about 130 quid. Whereas I had a quote to get a fiberglasser in to do mine, and they wanted just short of 700 quid. But
you're getting their expertise, aren't you?
Pardon?
But you're always getting their expertise and their experience, what you're paying for as well, aren't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I know they're buying it in bulk, so theoretically they're getting it probably the materials cheaper than I would be able to get it. So I mean, they do make a fair whack, but as you say, you're paying for that expertise, knowing that it's going to be done properly. And if it's not, if you go to a reputable person, they're going to come back and fix anything that needs fixing. You know, so it's having that peace of mind, I suppose. But yeah, I was a bit shocked. My little tiny pond, 1.7 meters by 1 meter, plus the Celotex or Kingspan, whatever I'm going to insulate it with, so even smaller than that. And they wanted 690 quid, I think it was.
It's not cheap, is it? But
no, definitely not cheap. Definitely not cheap.
Is because my pond's half in the ground and half out. I don't really get the big temperature sort of swings as such, because I think I could be totally wrong by saying this, but it's only my bit is with bit being in the ground that it sort of holds that bit of heat and it's keeping the water at a steady temperature. Oh, and then he's gone, and now he's back again. So it's not just me having problems. I can't remember what we're on about, but we'll get to the question. If it pops back in my head, then it will do. Question: with a holding / quarantine tank, what's the best to clean it with before adding fish, PP, etc.?
To be honest, me personally, I would always, if it's a pre-clean before you go put anything in it, then I would PP it, and I would do a seriously strong dose, just to make sure everything is all clean and singing and dancing. You know, I mean, you've got your Virkons, you've got your CTs. There are many sterilizers for ponds and water out there, but PP is one of the strongest. And if it's a pre-clean before you start putting fish in there, then why not go for the strongest and give it a damn good whack? Personally,
like you said,
I wouldn't obviously do things like that with fish in there, but before you do, you know, the same as when I buy any second-hand or new equipment. You know, if it's second-hand and been used before, I will always give it one hell of a PP dose just to be sure. You know, it might cost. I might not. You know, it might be costing me more money, and I don't need to do that much. But after losing all my fish 2 years ago to a bacterial issue from a fish I got from a dealer that shall not be named. You know, I wouldn't ever not do it personally. Again, it's from my own personal experiences. I've learned my mistakes, and I've changed the ways I do things. So,
and then, like I said, then Max Country Koi, we PP if nothing is in there, which is like what you said. And Carol Lysett said that's true, Jamie. My retro being great, but if you do have to take it out of the pond to blast it off, that's something I suppose that you'd have to do like once, maybe twice a year, or like say if you got blanket weed and this and that, you'll have to do it more regularly.
Yeah. The most times you would probably have to do it, Dave, is after a blanket weed treatment, obviously, and then generally around autumn time you might need to take it out a couple of times, because obviously with all the leaves and whatnot falling in. But again, with it though, you can just keep your eye on the water flow, because if it's starting to get blocked up, then obviously your water flow is going to be reducing. And it's just a case of if you go out one day and think, oh, that looks slower than it did yesterday, oh well, time to lift the pump out and give it a clean.
And then pond and fishing with rodders, what sort of problems? Do you mind explaining a bit more what you mean, so then we sort of know what you mean, or if you just jump halfway through when you're on about sort of problems, because we were on about somebody put further up in the comments that was on about, do you just put a treatment in your pond not knowing what it might be? That's what we was on about, if that's what you were meaning. And then Steve G then put, the resin in them kits, Jamie, is always very tight. You need to have more. So it's one of them again, isn't it? It's what you plan for, double it. So then you've always got that extra bit if you require it, no matter what it is.
I say it to everyone, it's better to have too much and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah.
Because if you're halfway through and you run out, you're pretty much buggered.
Yeah. And then what's the other bit right after that? Yeah, we've touched upon it obviously with the live shows before, with different sort of filtrations you've got, but have a different perspective on it. What sort of filtrations would you that you can start off with as a DIYer, or if you wanted to go a little bit more, because like you have now, because I've got a few answers here that I've written down, but I'll see what you come up with, and then I'll.
I'm not the perfect person to probably answer that, because I mean the pond I've got now is my pond number 6, I think, in the different properties I've lived in, and I've literally started off at the bottom, walking into your local dealer and say, right, what's the cheapest thing on your shelf, mate? So now I've probably got one of the most expensive filters for the size and what it does that money can buy. Like, I mean, what, they're £2,500 now for my tiny little drum filter, which is ridiculous. There might even be 2,900 now, but they just keep going up. But yeah, so I've literally had every filter you can possibly think of. I started off with a real old style box filter, similar to the one Kyle has currently coming off his skimmer line. But smaller. So I started off with one of them. I then upgraded that to the EA upflow box filter, one of the little ones that's currently on my back pond. But then I started buying a lot more koi, and I had a load of mirror carp in the pond as well. So I added a 30,000 litre pressure filter before that. I had a backy shower, homemade one as well, for many years. And then I bought a sieve intending to use it for this pond, but decided I've got the money just about, I'm going to buy a drum, but then I had no money left over to finish the pond. So, but saying that, I do not regret buying the drum at all. It's probably the best decision I made on this pond. Just everyone, I mean, I get a lot of visitors to see my pond, not just because of YouTube, but because obviously being the chairman of the Peterborough Koi Club, we have a lot of koi club meets here, and they can be anywhere between sort of 6 and 7 people up to sort of 15 to 20 people, on the first Sunday of the month coming to visit the pond. And the one thing everybody says about my pond is how crystal clear, and there are no fines or anything like that in my pond. And that's all thanks to the drum. If I had gone with another filter, it would have still been crystal clear. But you just, if I haven't fed the fish for 8 hours, you cannot see a particle floating in my pond. And that's one thing I love about the drum. Very, very expensive, but another big bonus that I like about it is the fact that I can go on holiday, set up an auto feeder, and not worry too much that my pond is pretty secure as is, being gravity fed and having a drum. The filter cleans itself. There's not an awful lot of regular maintenance I've got to do. I check on the drum every week and get the old scrubby brush out and clean around the pipes and stuff where the waste sometimes builds up, but it can never block up. So that's one less worry, I suppose, as a koi keeper. And it can always fail though. That's one downside about a drum, is it is technology, and technology can go wrong. And when it does, I bet it's not cheap either.
Budget Bond Keeper, wow, working on a Sunday. Catch you later, and hope you enjoy your shift at work tomorrow. And then we've got Stevie G. How much water does your drum use on each flush, Jamie? Any idea?
Not exactly, but I can give you a rough idea. When it cleans, I've got a 7-litre watering can that I sometimes, while it's clean, while I'm doing a clean, I'll fill up my watering can to go water the garden with. and it fills a 7-litre watering can up just short of halfway. So probably about 3 litres.
Yeah. Well, on that, I started off on the pond I'm on now with a pressure filter, which was, I can't remember what it was. And that had the built-in UV. Then I went to a multi-bay, which I've just seen up there, multi-bays. And I absolutely love my I was going to say multi-millionaire then, multi-bay.
I wish we was.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. It's one of the old styles, but it's one of the good filters out there. But I was spending 2.5 hours traveling the hose pipe all the way down the garden, proper cleaning the brushes, doing this, doing that. And I was just losing near enough half of my day on a Sunday to just doing that while I was doing Sunday dinner. And then eventually I moved from the multi-bay to now what I've got, which is my Nexus 200 converted to a 220. And the cleaning on that and the amount of extra sort of material that I come out of that, because you can see it more, is just unreal. And it's just mind-blowing at how much extra personally I've got out of with my pond with the Nexus. But it's one of them, it's each to their own with what filtrations to put on the pond. And
exactly.
It's one of them, like you said,
like we mentioned earlier, Dave. Every single thing with a pond, with a filter, whatever it may be, has its pros and cons. And what you've got to do as a pond keeper is work out what is best for you and your pond to, weigh up the pros and cons. Like the multi-bays are absolutely fantastic. They keep ponds really clear. They're really versatile. You can use them as pump fed or gravity fed. They are really good. The downside is they take an awful lot of effort to keep clean.
Yeah.
You've got 3 or 4, sometimes 5 bays, sometimes more if you've got a really big one, and you've got to get your hands in there and get dirty. And if it's middle of winter and the water's mine got down to -2 this year, my pond. If it's -2 and you've got to clean out your whole multi-bay, that's a cold day.
I've been there, done that, wore t-shirt, and honestly,
exactly,
it was freezing.
Yeah. Whereas a Nexus, like you've got now, that's all cleaned by air, so you don't actually get your hands wet as much. So
and then you've got
go on.
Jamie, I agree, drums are great, but people don't realise you still have to do water changes, but generally a great kit.
Absolutely. The good thing with my drum is it does most of my water changes for me, because my drum can only just about cope with the size of the pond and the amount of fish I've got. It cleans quite regularly. Not so much in the winter, but in the summer, it's cleaning almost every 20 minutes. And when you're losing 3 litres of water every 20 minutes, that I have to have the auto top-up or the hose pipe on the trickling running in just to compensate for what the drum's taking out.
Yeah.
So that's constant water change anyway. Plus, if I ever do need to clean the drum out or anything for any reason, you'd be surprised. Them little drums, I mean, they're not very big, but they hold an awful lot of water. If I empty the drum and then let the water fill it back up, my pond drops by 4 to 6 inches. So it's surprising how much water them little drums actually hold.
Well, when I was changing from my multi-bay to the Nexus, wow, the amount of water that were held, I thought, there's only about that much water in multi-bay. It won't be too bad to lift it. So me and obviously my local car dealer picking it up like, okay, now this is a bit heavy, right? Something I had to empty all the water out to then get it out. Honestly, that much water in 4 bays, it still weighed a heck of a lot.
Oh yeah.
And it's amazing. You don't think that much water across there, it's not going to weigh much. It does weigh a heck of a lot. And then a guy I had a Nexus 300 for 16 years. It did allow fines through as soon as after I fitted a UB60 bead. So the gravity to the Nexus, then pump from the Nexus bead to my pond with a happy smile. I haven't used a bead, but it's one of them. It's what you want from your pond, whether you want, whether you don't mind a few fines, whether you don't want no fines. It's all down to the personal preference of the person and their pond.
I think
Whereas,
the biggest thing that makes people buy the filter they get 9 times out of 10 is budget. I think everybody would love the best filter that they could have that they can afford. You know,
yeah,
if everybody was a millionaire, they'd all maybe not drums because a drum is not for everybody. But if everybody had plenty of money, they would always buy the top of the range filter for the size of the pond they've got. But sometimes the budget doesn't allow that, so people like you started off with like multi-bass and things like that. They work absolutely brilliant, but it's just a case of I suppose the less money you spend on a filter, the more maintenance they probably take to look after. Which,
well, I've just missed the comment that ANC put because I think they run two of the pressure filters and look at their pond.
Yeah. Well,
You
when
know,
I put that 30,000 on, I had at the time I first bought that, I had 20 mirror carp and about 15 koi in a pond. Not very big, mind you, only about sort of 6 to 10 inches, but about 35 fish in a very small pond. And that 30,000 litre pressure filter turned it from a pea soup green to crystal clear in like weeks and kept it crystal clear. So that their pressure filters do really work. It's just a lot. The people that call them death traps or death cans or whatever, they can be if you don't open them up a couple of times a year and clean out all the rest of the crud from the bottom, because they do build up with crud at the bottom. I ain't gonna lie, I've got one still running on the fry tank, and they do. But if you don't ever empty them out, then yeah, you might get bacterial issues. So again, it's a case of, as I said, the cheaper you go, the more maintenance you've got to do. And if you're happy maintaining your pond and your filters, which a lot of koi keepers are, a lot of people say it's their favourite part of the hobby.
Well, it is because you know every day you choose to do your filter cleans, or when you get home from work on a nice summer's evening, it's nice just to go out there, do your stuff, and then while you're there, you can enjoy your koi. Whereas when it's a little bit cold and a bit near, you go out, you do your filter cleans, and then at the same time, you're still seeing your fish. It's one of them. I love cleaning multi-bays. It just I didn't want to be spending 2.5 hours personally cleaning it, but like Simon Shears put there, I clean one bay the first, and then the other 3 are self-sufficient as the last bay is all jack matting. The little KK 5000V, I do clean all the bays, and it's such a simple clean. Well, I do that. I used to do that. I used to clean the first bay and then the third bay, like say on a Wednesday, and it get to a Sunday, then I'll do the first bay, the second bay. I never ever used to do the alpha grog or the moving bed. I used to do them like once every other month because obviously it's got all the beneficial bacteria in there that you need to help run and survive in your pond. So,
well, like Andy said from Koi Pond Lifestyle in his latest video, I mean, he said he wouldn't, even if he built a new pond, he wouldn't get rid of his multi-bait because he loves it, you know. And absolutely. And the way he does it, he cleans out the first bay, which is his vortex, like very regularly, a couple of times a week or whatever. And then each bay after that gets a slightly, longer period in between cleaning. And as you say, the last bay is always generally the cleanest. So that needs the less cleaning.
And then, like I said, that's what they say. It's the Awazi 3000 Vito Clear and Awazi BioSmart 36,000 box, 55 watt UV and a 36 watt UV.
And that'll be why your pond's always crystal clear.
Well,
their Wazi pressure filters are actually really good. I do like them, but it's just
it's one of them. It's always each to their own. And like Simon Shears says, no drum comes close to the versatility or multi-bass, especially the big boy multi-bass. But that was the only other downside with the multi-bays. They are great, and I love mine. And like I said, if it didn't take me so long to clean it, then I would still have it. Is that how big they are and how much square footage they actually take up. But yeah, other than that, all the filters, other than an Easy Pod,
the thing is that a lot of people don't realise with drums though is they don't hold an awful lot of bio. Even the ones with the little bio chambers. I mean, mine has a little bio chamber, but it can only hold 50 litres of media, which is not a lot. So if you want a drum, you've still then got to think theoretically you are going to need extra filtration. Where with a multi-bay, you generally don't.
No.
People choose to put extra filtration with a multi-bay, but you kind of have to with a drum. So again, there's another pro and con.
And then that's it, Jamie. Overkill. But you know, it's one of them. It's like a 55 watt UV on a 2,000 gallon pond is a little bit overkill. I probably could have done with a 35 watt, but I'd rather have a little bit more than not enough. Like with my Nexus 220, you know, is a little bit. I could have gone with an easy pod and had a bit something outside, but I just like the concept of it being an all in one, and like it's just easier for me. And then Jamie's koi pond, but I changed from a multi bays to an easy pod. That's the best thing I've done, but might use the multi bay on my grow on setup. And then Shrewsbury koi, I've got 2 pressure filters, which do great for me, but I've just got an easy pod today. However, I question it. Will do the pressure filters are doing? Will time will tell, and I'll put it on my videos. This is the thing. What I did personally with mine is I did have a moving bed on my multi bay, so the media that was in there with the brand new media and the PP media going in my Nexus, I had a little bit already in there to try and kickstart. You know, you knew Biohome, and luckily I lost one small coil that were about say year big, but I were expecting a bit of a spike because I wasn't going to get new pond syndrome, but I knew I were going to get spikes because obviously the bio hasn't caught up quick enough with the pond. But it's one of them. I would always try if you can keep what you've got on until. But an easy pod's more mechanical, but it does have a little bio as well. But
if you get the flow right on an easy pod, they are a great mechanical filter, like absolutely brilliant. But you've got to get that flow right. They do have good bio on them as well, with the amount of K1 that you've got in, or micro K1, depending on what you're using in an easy pod. But like you say, the best, if you're Shrewsbury, if you're looking to switch to an easy pod, the best thing you can do is take all the media from the easy pod, whatever you've got, put it in a mesh bag, and just pop that inside your pond for 3, 4, 5 weeks, however long you can, before you switch over to the easy pod. Just keep it in a mesh bag, dangled in the side of your pond. That way, the bacteria is starting to grow on your K1, micro K1, K1 plus, whatever you're using, before you then set up the easy pod. So then when you get to setting it up, you've already got established-ish media ready to go.
Yeah. That's a different option, which I didn't think of because I just wanted to get everything in place because I didn't have enough space down there to have both of them going. But when I did have my pressure filter and my multi-bay, I run the two together until I could get the multi-bay up to speed to then shut off the pressure filter. But like I said, that's actually like Shrewsbury's guy just put there. That was great advice. Cheers, Jamie. I didn't think of that. So that's why it always works.
I can't take full credit for it. I see it on someone else's video like years ago. You know, it's been done before, but it's just that's the thing about koi keeping. You learn something new every day, and it's just trying to remember everything you've learned along the way. I mean, I've probably forgotten more things than I actually know. I mean, people forget, although I've got a relatively new pond, I've actually been keeping koi and carp for about 16 years now. And before I started keeping koi and carp, what got me into it is I used to work at a carp farm that bred carp for fisheries. You know, so
like VH. Well, I think one of the biggest carp fisheries, I think, is that VS Fisheries or something.
Yeah, VS.
Yeah, so he's one of the bigger ones, isn't it? There probably is other ones out there, but like I say, it's just with certain videos I've watched, they've always had his fish, but I know there is other ones out there. Or just getting it across, so I'm not just like going, it's just one. There is others. What else? And then also to do with skimmers when you're building your pond. You know, you can have your in-wall skimmers, like there's the Cockney Koi one. There probably is other ones, but on the YouTube scene, I've only seen the Cockney Koi ones. Or you've got like the Awazi ones that are on a plug and that just float on top. Or you've got the ones like Vince has as is, where it's got that plastic tube that sits on top and goes through the side of his pond, or the one I've got, where it's the same sort of thing, but it's got a concrete base, and that's what feeds me backy shower. Is it goes through that skimmer, then over the backy shower, and returns back to my pond. So I have that on a separate system to my actual Nexus, because I'm trying to get a 4-inch, then reducing it to go over back here. I didn't really see point.
No.
But I did have that Awazi swing skim, but it packed up.
Yeah, I'm kind of gutted now that I sold mine to Ron from Westcliff Koi, because that I think after hearing all you lovely people commenting on my videos and the advice that I've got from my new little grow and pond video, I probably won't have an in-wall skimmer. I probably will get a floating skimmer, just because the last one I had worked absolutely brilliant, and I had the one you've just mentioned, the Awazi Skim Swim 25, and it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, it cleared the surface of even because I didn't get rid of it the day I built this pond. I waited till everything was fully operational before I got rid of it, and it used to be able to skim the surface of my 12,000 litre pond, no trouble at all. And obviously Andy from Derby Koi's got one as well, and his pond's quite a big footprint, and it keeps the surface of his pond clear. So they are great bits of kit. So I think my plan now is to go back to and get one of them. So I am kind of gutted I sold it now, but yeah, there's loads of different skimmers out there. You can get the ones, one you haven't mentioned is the one, I think it's an Awazi one as well, actually, where it's on a sort of a flexi pipe along the ground. You normally put stones in it to weight it down, and that just kind of is on a pipe coming up and bobs on the surface. So you've got that one. Obviously, the one you said, Vince's one, is the same as Telford's, which is a 4-inch pipe going through the side of your wall. You know, the one I've got is a JBS, JBL. Is it JBL, JBS? One of them. one of their skimmers. And then Absolute Koi, they also do their own version of this, similar to the skimmer I've got. And I think Danny from Koi Pond, Danny's Koi Pond has got that one from Absolute Koi.
It was just the ones that were off top of my head. But when you're building your pond, it's worth thinking, you know, like where it is, whether you're going to have a lot of debris or something like that, whether you can have the in-wall skimmer, or like you said, a floating one. I did have the floating one, but it gave up the ghost. But it won't work for 2 years. But, you know.
I get the reason why I need, everyone asked me during that video that I did, why do I need a skimmer? Do I really need a skimmer? It's only a growing pond. If I turned my skimmer off for about a day and then showed you the surface of my pond, you'd know why I need a skimmer. I'm still getting leaves and seeds and everything blowing in my pond now, and they all fell off the tree back in November, and they still end up in my pond. So, you know, it's just something that I do need even on the growing pond, unless I leave it covered 24/7, which in the summer, obviously, I don't want to be doing that. So I do want a skimmer. So to answer that question, to everybody that commented, yes, I need a skimmer.
Well, it's one of them. And what else is there? Yeah, like some like you'll probably is like where your pond returns to help with you flow around the pond, like the video I put out nearly 2 weeks ago with Chris Masters, is when he had like his Koi Masters Advantage and Fork, and I think another one that he has like a 30,000 litre on his pond to help the extra flow, and I videoed it where you could see the actual flow going all the way around the pond, and also it helps with your younger fish like your Tosai and probably Nisai and obviously your fry to have that extra little bit of flow to help. Obviously, if they're eating a lot, it's like us. If we eat a lot, we need to at least have a bit of exercise, so it's extra exercise for the fish. Whereas probably if I built mine again, I probably would have a mid-flow return or a bottom-ish return and a top. But because I'm pump fed, I only have the top one and where my backy is. But there may be a few changes along the way this year, possibly. But what would you advise on that with sort of your returns?
Again, it is down to the individual. Again, I mean, there's so many different ways to put your returns in. I mean, you look at Lee and Crafty have both done, obviously, trying to do the similar sort of thing. They're putting all their returns at the top of the pond, blowing in the same direction to kind of create a rolling effect. So the water skims across the top in one direction, hits the wall, and then comes back underneath. The way I've done mine is to have a vortex. So all my returns, I've only got two, but both of them are pointing in the same direction, creating a flow around the pond in a circular motion. Similar to Chris Masters, but in a lot less power. To create that vortex. And it's basically, it's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but it's to keep the flow moving, is to keep the water circulating. Because if you end up with major dead spots in your pond, not only are they going to get filled with crap and rubbish and debris and whatnot, but it's also stale water. If nothing is moving in that particular corner or area of the pond, it's also stale water. And that's not, again, a breeding ground for the bad bacteria then. So to keep the flow moving around your pond, whichever way you do it, whether you go the way Lee and Crafty have gone over the top and then underneath, I don't personally like that idea. But again, it's everybody's
personal choice, isn't it?
It's obviously working. What they've done is obviously working. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't like the idea. Because every pond I've ever had has had a vortex, and it's always worked for me. So I'll always stick with the vortex.
And then before the comment does go, it says, Koi Karma, Jamie, I've got a swim skim that I don't use, mate. PM me if you want it. Thumbs up, thumbs up.
After the live, buddy, I'll drop you a message.
And then the thing that you were on about, I've got the JBR skimmer, but made a floating weir instead of the grill at the front. I think that's what you're on about, wasn't it?
JBR. I know something like that. But yeah, no, they are really good skimmers. But I can understand why you'd want a weir on it, because the plate they send you has like a gap. Well, mine's got 3 gaps like that, but just over an inch probably thick, which means you can't really put towsai in the pond because they end up in the skimmer. An inch gap if you look, down on a fish, a towsai generally isn't an inch wide, so they can quite easily fit through there, which is why I've still got that horrible green net bobbing around on the top of my pond, because all the smaller fish from last year that didn't grow are still sat in there, because I don't want them ending up down the skimmer.
And it like that's what we're on about, Martin. Koi Pond and Garden, personal choice and budget. That's why we're trying to give the different options. What people might want, like pond windows. Just trying to roughly go back up on it, like auto top ups, maybe power cups, gravity fed, pump fed. What sort of materials going to make your pond out of, and stuff like that. So like I said, it's just all different approaches, to one another. And that's where I reached out to Jamie with him building another pond. It sort of might get advice from it, or give other people advice of what he's done. And
if you guys are getting advice from me, send it my way.
And then fire more koi. After building my pond to vortex in one direction, I learned you should have switchable returns, so you can turn your pond clockwise for a time, then switch to the other.
Oh.
And that's it. It's all personal choices, which is what, which is good. And then I think to then carry on that, switch to the other, return to turn it anti-clockwise for a time, so the fish do not build a body muscle on one side, if that does make sense.
It does make perfect sense, yeah. I would have never even thought of that. But yeah, I can see what you're saying, though, because if they're always swimming against the flow in one direction and going round in a circle in that way, then yeah, I suppose, yeah, absolutely.
It's one of them, isn't it? I think it were on Gaz's one of his live shows that were on about it, where sometimes your fish can get a little bit bigger on one side. I could be wrong; it might not be in his live. Where they're always swimming one way, then maybe one side can get a bit more muscle than the other, sort of thing.
I would suppose that matters more in a circular pond than a square pond, because in a square, even though they're swimming in a circle, they're always swimming in a straight line until the corner. So, but in a circle, they're constantly swimming at that slight angle, I suppose.
So,
I don't know. I'm just guessing now, you know. But
well,
but I,
Tony,
I, can,
is
I
your
can certainly see his point though. That is a good point.
and I've just dropped the link. If anybody does want to jump on, the link's there. It's always been on the blue banner. And Tony, just a quick question to you: is your pond circular, or is it more of a rectangular shape? Just so we have an idea of what your pond sort of is.
I'm just trying to picture it now. I know he's got a lovely stone pond, or stones on the top. I think it's square.
Well, like I say, there's that many different YouTube channels that I watch. I can't, you know, sometimes you're like, when you get the comments, you're trying to think of their channel off the top of your head quickly, and then
If
you
you
remind
ask me what his fish tanks look like, I know what his fish tanks look like because all we're seeing at the moment is his fish tanks. But he's got some lovely goshki in his fish tanks at the minute, but they're growing way too quick.
And then you've got Jamie's koi pond. I've got the same skimmer as Vince, but I only use 1.5 inch pipe, but going to add a wall skimmer when the weather warms up. So yeah, and I was quickly. I'll catch you later, Carol. Thank you very much for coming in. Very nice, and I might be visiting your pond again this year, if you'll allow me to.
I'm still waiting for you to come down and see mine, do you?
Well, we'll have to see what happens this year, won't we? Yeah, there you go. Yep, you're correct. It is square.
Okay.
There you go. You're
I
right.
do like the idea though of being able to switch it from one direction to the other. But again, if you're gravity fed with pressure pipe and all that, the extra cost that you would have to, you know, with all the extra pipe work, ball valves and everything. Again, everything with pond builds comes down to money. Like Martin said a minute ago, you know, it's all down to budget. And like we've said, if everybody had hundreds of thousands of pounds sat in the bank, everyone would have the bestest equipment that they could afford. And anyone that says otherwise is telling porkies.
And then I think that's the answer to Tony's question. Yeah, I've heard that before. I'm sure Pete Warrington discussed that years ago. And if I can, I might see if I can get hold of some of his books, if I can somewhere, because they'll be quite good to actually learn bits, you know, off of people like that, you know, that you know, because I think he was one of the main ones that I think started introducing more koi to the UK. I believe. I could be wrong.
No, you're pretty much spot on there. He basically brought koi to the masses. It was always, the hobby was always around, but he kind of promoted it and brought it to the masses, and made it big in the UK basically.
And then if anybody does want to join us and got any questions for us, the link, I'm just putting a link in there, so you can tap on that and join us. You'll be backstage. Make sure you got a microphone that works and that doesn't go like obviously mine did, and make sure you know your camera's got capability. Just basically like if you're doing a voice call or something on Facebook or other social media sites, then it would work. And then Jamie's just put that's the 99th subscriber I have. I'm slowly getting there. Just need to add the content. It's one of them, you know, you create your own content and subscribers will come along, enjoy your content, and you know, they'll subscribe along. That's what my journey is, you know, doing what I think is good enough for people to watch, and I'll video it. If people like it, then you can subscribe along. You can ring the bell, or you know, it's just nice that people are viewing my videos and subscribing to my journey that I you know, starting to do again, and it's nice. And I bet when you started yours, Jamie, you never thought you'd get as many subscribers as what you have.
No, not a chance. Not a chance. It is humbling to you know, to hit this. The comments is the biggest thing for me. To see the nice. I mean, some are critical in not in a nasty way, but you know, some people are saying, "Oh, I wouldn't do that," or you know, giving you advice, but in a critical way. And I even still appreciate those, because sometimes, like what Tony just said about being able to change things clockwise and stuff. Some things you either don't think of or you don't know. So just the comments of YouTube is my biggest humbling experience, to just see not only are people watching my content, but they're actually enjoying it. And I've said it in some of my videos, but I've had so many private emails and people finding me on Facebook and whatnot to personally thank me for for what I've done, either helping them out with their bills or just for keeping them entertained. I picked up that Easy Pod last week from on the way back from the Growing Show, and that was from one of my subscribers. So Dave, if you are watching this, again, absolutely thank you so much. I really, really, really do appreciate it. And that's just from people enjoying what we do.
Yeah.
It's just so humbling, it really is.
And the reason I was laughing while you were talking was because Simon shares DT, no one watches BBC anymore, laughing faces at me.
No.
Well, the thing is, you don't get the sort of content from me as you do with them lot, because on a live show, you never know what's going to happen. Like in the intro, where you've got signs falling, you've got me blooming camera falling on me, like it has done tonight, or you get blooming microphone problems, even though you buy one of these that's meant to stop it. I don't know. It's just
the reason I say it to my missus all the time, but the reason I prefer watching YouTube now over whatever crap is on the telly is because everything on the telly is a repeat. Apart from your EastEnders, Corrie, and all the other soaps, everything else is a repeat. It's very rare you get new stuff. Whereas at least with following all the other I mean, God knows how many Koi tubers I follow now. I don't even think YouTube actually tells you how many people you're following. I think you've actually
but it's nice to know everyone. You get like the things like tonight. We're Tony on about turning things clockwise, anti-clockwise. It's something that you never probably thought of, never I thought of, and it's learning from each other and helping everybody grow together, which is what I like about the YouTube side of things. You can watch a video, and then I might do that with my pond, or like I had a disaster at one point. I put my polycarb back on my pond last winter, and it accidentally shoved my return like I don't know, about 2-3 mil, and it pushed it slightly off the multi-bait, which then drained my pond. And I put that on YouTube when obviously everything sort of settled down, and I explained stuff to maybe let somebody fit a float switch or have some sort of knockoff if it gets too low, which is the only downside of a pump fed system compared to, like you said, with gravity fed. But if you have a float switch, then 9 times out of 10 it will help stop your pond draining.
As long as your float switch doesn't fail, then it should be good.
And then Cyrus Shears, he's always like this, isn't he? The real DT, not fake. We all know what they promote. Oh, we're not going down this blooming road, Simon. Oh God.
Oh, what have I missed? Go on, go down that road. I don't know
what it is he likes to put nice comments like that, and it's him being Simon. He's like it on other lives, and like I said, if you want to pop on for a quick chat, Vince, you're more than welcome to do so if you wish. And it's just because my keyboard's starting to blooming do lally. And like Tony says there, I've learnt so much from you, YouTubers, young and old, and the newcomers, some really good ideas, and we can all steal from YouTuber channels. Well, that's what it's about.
Absolutely. We don't do it for copyright. We do it because we enjoy doing it. And if we know something, like when I very first, I mean, loads of people knew about it, but not everybody did. When I first announced years ago now that you could loosen a ball valve, the amount of people that commented on that video saying, flipping, oh, I didn't know that. And I had so many messages and comments and emails, people saying, oh, thanks, I've had a ball valve I haven't been able to twist for 6 months. I've just drained the pond, loosened it, put it back on, it's working perfectly. Just even little tips like that. I learned that initially from a YouTuber I watched, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more. Might have even been from the Peterborough. Either way, I learned it a long time ago, and I just thought, well, while I'm talking ball valves, I had one in my hand. I might as well show people how to loosen it. And it was a tip that everybody loved. A few other YouTubers jumped on the bandwagon and did their own version video of it, and that's what it's all about. It's not just because I did it doesn't mean to say no other YouTuber can do that material. It doesn't work like that,
It's about, say, not all your subscribers might, they might not all be to you if somebody else does it. and then they're subscribed. It's about everyone coming together and learning different bits, because not everyone follows everybody's channel, but what somebody hasn't seen might be able to see on somebody else's. And then just while I remembered off the top of my head, if you, Dale, you got the, for Gazza's, because he put me on the spot last week, you got the his grandson's baby the right weight. Have you managed to contact Gaz in regards to that, or not? Just let me know in the comments so I know whether you have or whether you haven't, because if not, I'll get in touch and we can sort things out. Just let her off the top of my head, because he won it at £7 9 ounces. So yeah, sorry about that. It just while it's on the mind, poof.
Yeah, no, I'm like you. If I don't do something when I think about it, I completely forget. I forget what I did 2 minutes ago, let alone what I did 2 years ago.
Well, like I said, if wait for his reply, and seeing as nobody else is coming on, he sent him a message. Thank you very much. Hopefully I could get my mug at the same time as you get your mug. But it's one of them, the Koi mug collection at minute stands at 4. If anybody else would like to add it and do a mug swap, you send me one, I'll send you one. Happy days. And yeah, and on that note, guys, thanks for watching. Keep calm, keep Koi. And on that note, just before I go, there won't be a live next Saturday because I'm doing more preparation and stuff for the run. So I will be doing the odd live bits on YouTube because I'm setting off about 8 o'clock. So there'll be odd lives here and there throughout the day on my channel. So if you are watching this and not subscribed, please subscribe, ring the notification bell. So then when I am live next Sunday, you'll be able to see the little lives. I think I'll start at 8 o'clock and I'll do a live from when I'm setting off, maybe one about 10, 11, and just do the odd bit here and there. So yeah, on that note, guys, I'll say it again. Keep calm, keep Koi, and on that note, I'll catch you in 2 weeks on Saturday. Thank you very much, and thanks, Jamie, for popping on.
More than welcome. Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem.